My name is David Quinn. I am the VP of the Strategy and Partnerships team at Gummicube. How many of you went to the 11:45 session where Dave Bell talked about changes to the App Store, things like that? A few people here. Cool. So he covered a lot of the things that are going on in search and how it might affect keyword targeting, the advent of AI and how Apple's adopting it and how it might affect keyword targeting, things like that. I'll be covering going beyond keyword targeting into some of the newer, couple of years old now, features that Apple and Google have around curating your content and keeping it current for events and things like that. So yeah, we'll be covering a little bit about Gummicube, building on that foundational ASO like I mentioned, and then getting into the current events and offers for Apple and Google, and then curated custom pages on Apple and Google, the analogous features and the differences that both platforms have. So a little bit about Gummicube. We were founded in 2010. We have more than 15 years experience in ASO. Basically had to come to conferences back then and explain what ASO is because we pioneered the industry. We're the oldest ASO company in North America. Invented the e-commerce style of how Apple and Google merchandise your apps. It's not just keyword targeting like SEO. It's the relationships between keywords and things like that were covered in the earlier session. We're also a division of Airship Group. So Gummicube focuses on the top funnel, getting discovered, getting converted, and getting essentially new user installs for your app. And then Airship focuses beyond the download for loyalty, engagement, re-engagement, things like that. So sort of the whole scope of getting people to find your app and getting them to download and then getting them to stay there. A little bit about me. I helped co-found Gummicube. I joined shortly after in 2011. And then, like I said, we helped pioneer ASO, and I've got 20 years experience doing ringtones, long time ago. So going into core ASO, I'm not really going to focus much on these topics. The strategies behind doing keyword optimization, researching what keywords your app is relevant for, seeing what your competitors are doing. For creative as well, running A/B tests, running paid campaigns to support what's working on organic, so they work hand in hand. That's all foundational ASO. That is still necessary. I'm mainly going to focus on some of these new things for audience personalization, for the in-app events and promotional content for Apple and Google, and then the custom pages that you can do on both platforms. The foundational aspects of ASO are still important to do. Building on that, these are also now new things that you must be doing if you want to stay at the top of the store. So starting with staying current, that part of this. Show of hands, how many of us have run in-app events, promo content, that sort of thing? Okay, good. So be covering a little bit of an overview, but most of you have run in-app events, and so you kind of know what they are and what they're for. Major updates, new seasons, live events. This is for Apple's permutation of keeping current. These are mainly to drive engagement and re-engagement. It's not so much a driver of new first-time user installs, but it helps increase your visibility and conversion rates. And this example here, without in-app events, if you're a user who already downloaded Netflix and you search for streaming app, you'll see nothing. The screenshots don't show up if you're a current user or a lapsed user. But if you have an in-app event and you have Hulu installed already, instead of seeing the screenshots, you'll see this in-app event, there's new content, it might give it a second look, plus you take up all this space. Is my mouse? Oh, there we go. So you'll take up all this space in search results, whereas Disney Plus is taking up most of the screen real estate above the fold. Here they get pushed down, so you have an opportunity to physically push your competitors down if you're running in-app events. So it's not just the engagement and re-engagement, but it's also this opportunity for a competitor to take market share from you if you don't have it up and running. And then it's kind of unnecessary because most of us have run in-app events, but this is what they look like and the types of things they can be for. Promotional content on Google Play is analogous in that you can drive engagement and re-engagement, but there's a much bigger opportunity on the Play Store to get new user installs. attributed to the Explore channel. I'll cover where the data is attributed a little bit further down in the deck. But you can also appear in more spots. You can duplicate your organic placements a little bit down in organic. You'll have more results that have limited time events, so you can like show up twice here, along with the For You tab feature placements. Plus, you can show up for events happening now in search results. So there's a lot of opportunities for that. And you can also promote limited time offers in ways that aren't available in the App Store. So if you have discounts or sales, things like that. Another group question, how many of you have been rejected for an in-app event because you were doing a sale or promotion or something like that? Yeah, so Google, you can do it. Apple, you can do it. You have to be a little tactful in how you do it, but I'll go into that in a sec. And then these are some examples of promo content on the For You tab. So the eligibility requirements, in-app events, any developer can run an in-app event. The utility of in-app events, if your app's brand new, it's probably not going to benefit from doing re-engagement because you need to get the new user installs up. But technically, anyone can run an in-app event on the iOS App Store. You do need a deep link, and that's something I've seen some developers run into trouble with because they have to figure out how to get the link and put it in. But if you have that along with meeting their graphics criteria and having the metadata, should be all good. Unless you have a price promotion or you're not really introducing new content. And again, you can wordsmith the assets in a way to help with that. Promo content eligibility. So it's been about a year now where this has been bundled as a premium growth tool feature. Premium growth tools on the Play Store are for developers that meet thresholds of DAUs and revenue in qualifying categories. Also, you have to be in good standing to be featured for promo content. So frequent rejections, having crashes and ANRs that are above bad behavior, and policy declarations not being filled out, things like that can exclude you from that. But Google's made some updates to this. It used to be that none of these categories were able to be supported. But if you are in the dating category and you're not limited to limited audience like the ethnicity or religion, things like that, you're eligible now. Some business, along with dating, finance, news, and tools can be featured in limited ways. But if you're in medical, parenting, video players, or casino, it's still not supported. But this is changing a lot, so it's good to keep updated on that. So in-app events don't get rejected. So a reviewer might misunderstand that your in-app event is not a limited time exclusive offer or a limited time exclusive new update. So if you emphasize in your metadata why it's relevant and app exclusive, the difference might just be putting that language in the description of your in-app event, and then the approval is subjective, and we've been able to help some developers, there's some slides on this later, that were rejected before get the same in-app event approved, not because of the reply in the resolution center, but because of the structure and the language of what we write there. So you should use the resolution center, be nice to the resolution center people. They're usually more forthcoming with helping you out. I've seen if you leave a phone number for them to contact you and like talk about what's going on, that can get you to talk to the same person instead of someone that's new every time talking about the same thing. So that's helpful too. But really elaborate on why your in-app event is a limited time, all new exclusive type of seasonal, if that applies, experience for the user. And if you're applying to be featured, make sure that you're removing any text, even if the UX has text, using blocks or bubbles or things like that. They don't really like featuring apps that have text on them, like in this example at the bottom here. And then, yeah, strict guideline adherence is important. For Google Play, similar concept, roughly, broadly speaking, make it high quality. What does that mean? Google's documentation has some, and you can watch their Google I/O videos on what Android quality is, and just following those guidelines that they put out. Some of them are listed here. So the images containing text, localization, vague details. If it looks like an ad, there's some examples here of things that they've said are of poor quality, and then you can get rejected. So if you're looking to apply to be featured for your promo content, make sure you're high quality. So offers, this is the example I was referencing here. This is an example of a Mother's Day promo content offer and in-app event for Sephora, which is Sephora, you guys know, a brick and mortar store with an app, and they have a website. So for the people who mentioned that they got rejected for something that was an offer in the App Store, this language talks about the one-day only app-exclusive fragrance launch for limited time deals. This is a physical product. If you ever get rejected for a reviewer that's confused about an offer, the disambiguation of digital products versus physical products can help you get approved. That's something we work with a lot of shopping apps at Gummicube that we've helped them navigate. When you're talking about putting the word free or a discount somewhere, pricing and promotion in your screenshots or title can get you dinged. But the difference between physical products and digital consumables is huge when you're trying to get approved. And then in the promo content, we talk about the 20% off. If you're running promo content for an offer, there's some criteria here. You have to offer at least a 10% benefit. And so that could be a purchase discount, a value add, things like that. But if it's something that's just evergreen or happening all the time, it's not eligible for an offer. If it's seasonal for both platforms, that's highly encouraged, and definitely make sure if you're going to be doing that to apply in advance at least 2 weeks. They recommend up to 3 months in advance so that you can potentially be featured. So how to measure in-app events. How many of us have run an in-app event and looked at the data and it is blank? There's no data. And you're like, where the hell is, wow, okay. Yeah, so that's unfortunately normal. So the majority of engagement from first-time downloads, re-downloads, and app opens for in-app events is going to skew towards opens and re-downloads, but you do need 5 first-time downloads for any distribution of traffic that you want to cut up to look at that data. So for anything to appear, you need 5 first-time downloads from all territories, from all traffic sources. If you want to look at just search first-time downloads worldwide, you need 5 search first-time downloads. If you want to drill it down further to just US, 5 search US, etc. The data won't show up until you have that. One way you can help with that is these in-app events have links which can be used for marketing strategies. You can run half of your traffic on a meta campaign, for example, to an in-app event link, and then have the other half of your traffic go to your standard link and see which converts better. But you could take that link and try to use it to get those first-time downloads, 5 of them, to reveal the hundreds or thousands of opens and reopens that you're having. So sometimes this issue resolves itself. Sometimes it helps out to drive a small amount of traffic to your in-app event with that link. In-app events can skew impressions. That's another thing to look out for. It's not one-to-one. You can take Apple search ads metrics and subtract that from what you see in App Store Connect to understand the difference between your paid and organic search traffic going on. These aren't always one-to-one, and so it depends from app to app. But you might run an event and suddenly notice, oh, my conversion rate skyrocketed. This event is great. Well, it's just a factor of my event impressions taking away from my standard impressions, bringing my impressions down, which brings my ratio of conversion up. So look out that your event impression and regular impression reattribution isn't factoring into the data you're looking at. It'll be pretty clear when you go to App Store Connect and compare the two. So that's something to look out for when you're measuring performance. And in-app events vary from app to app. The age of the app affects it. The new content that you're releasing will affect it. So what is a good in-app event? You should really compare other events you've run for your app, even if you have multiple apps, for that app to the other events you've run to see which ones drive whether it's opens or reopens or new downloads, the KPI you're looking for. And then for promo content, there is a promo content report page that you can look at. but that data is not one-to-one with your listing conversion analysis data. So when you're looking at how many installs did I get, you'll also want to understand the baseline of how many installs you were getting before versus after you were running the event. So a lot of times when you go to the developer console, you'll see these, hopefully, these gray lines that indicate you were featured, and you'll see this explore traffic spike up. So you can understand a baseline of before and after to get a rough idea of how much uplift you got from doing that event. You can also and should also look at the promo content reports, but kind of like app opens in in-app events, there's not an analogous way to look at the baseline data. So this is a good way for you to understand the uplift you get from doing these. Most of the time though for Google Play, it's like super clear. Big spike when you get featured, it's indicated in the data. And even Google's data says apps that get featured typically get double at least the explore traffic installs, not traffic, when they're being featured. Requesting featuring, so there's new ways to be requested to be featured on both platforms. How many of us have been requested to be featured and successfully been featured? You're all jumping and then, oh, I don't know. Yeah, it's tricky to get featured. It's subjective. There's no limit on the new way that you can request to be featured in App Store Connect. It's a bottom left-hand side navigation menu item. It's called nomination that you can click on. Again, you'll want to make sure you're adhering to all their guidelines, have high quality, you have something new and innovative. You can request for your app in general to be featured, but you can also request for a timely event you have coming up to be featured. Criteria for being featured is very subjective and up to the review team at Apple, but if it's going to tie in to something seasonal that they have going on the Today tab, I'm sure we've all seen the curated stories that they have, you can do the reviewer's work for them by writing up a nice synopsis of this is my thing, here you go, I'll give you my homework, you can feature me please, and that's probably going to be helpful, especially if they're going to be featuring something for Mother's Day coming up or Father's Day and you're planning ahead and giving it to them months in advance, you have a higher chance of being featured. So at least 2 weeks is what they recommend. They also say up to 3 months, and then ensuring high quality and planning your marketing updates, your product updates accordingly. For Google, I mentioned already, but apps, and we've seen higher than this when we've run promotional content that gets featured, up over double the Explore acquisitions during the featuring window. Make sure you're eligible. That's being compliant technically, but they also have some recommendations like using flavored text and vibrant colors in the text you're doing, but keeping the text out of the image, making it compelling and unique. And then in the reporting, you can see when you were featured. You can request to be featured up to 4 times per quarter and recommend to do that essentially once every month or so, a little bit more than that. But if you have the Google Play grouping API integrated, you can also request 2 additional features for custom market segments. If you have email lists or user states and have that API integrated, you can get even more requests to be featured on top of that. So that's the events at a high level, promo content, high level, how to be featured, how to measure it. Curated pages, there's a lot of big changes that came out after these were introduced a couple of years ago. Do another one. How many of us have used custom product pages or custom store listings? Thank you for buying me time to drink water. A lot of people, this is not new, right? This is huge for ASO. There's some strategies around this that are things that maybe people haven't thought of or ways to measure it people haven't thought of, but essentially on the tail end of the privacy updates that Apple and Google rolled out, nerfing Facebook significantly. No one needs to show hands on how many people's CPIs went up in 2021 by double on Meta. But they introduced the ability to have these custom pages, which you can use on their native platforms for optimizing search ads and Google ads, things like that. So it's a more customized experience that can lead to more taps and installs and conversions. If your app has multiple features, if you have different demographics in your app, if you need to say different things to different people, this is extremely important. Before this was possible, it would be like doing a web campaign and having one landing page and being like, there's my landing page. Can't change it. What are you going to do? That's not going to be as successful as curating your landing pages to your different demographics. So the customization comparison, and I've painstakingly changed Apple search ads to Apple ads. This was bothered me quite a bit. I'm sure we'll all get used to it. But the screenshots, the preview video, and a 110, it's a little shorter than the standard 170 promo text on Apple, are the things that you can change in a custom product page. On a custom store listing, you can do all of that and more. You can essentially build an entirely different page, and you can A/B test in experiments any of the assets that experiments lets you do. So unfortunately, not the title for A/B testing, but you can make a totally separate page with a different icon, with a different title, things like that. So a lot more capabilities on Google Play versus what Apple lets you do. And then the traffic compatibility. So this is a little bit different too. Apple Ads is only applicable to Apple, of course, but both of them will give you a specific URL that you can put on a QR code or to email campaigns for your known user base. You can do territory targeting on Google Play with their capabilities. Organic search keywords, and I'm going to cover that one in a bit because there's a lot of potential for ASO there. And then Google Ads, its own giant caveat block here, because you can technically run it with a URL if you're doing it for the iOS App Store. Google Ads is only available for Google's AdMob network currently. So if you're running a custom product page with Google Ads, just check with your growth team to see which network the ads are running on, because you might be running it and seeing that you're getting traffic on the Google Ads side, but when you go to Google Play Developer Console, it says, I don't know what you're talking about. I have no data on this. It's because of the compatibility of things. So going into Google Play search keywords, so I want to talk about what this is and what it isn't. With Google Play, you get data on visitors and acquisitions. That's different than Apple's data on impressions, page views, and installs. And at the previous session, this was covered, but in the iOS App Store, around 80%, it varies from app to app, but around 80% of users will, I want to do a show of hands on this one too. Look up in the App Store a keyword, look at the search results, and then tap or not tap the giant get button there. How many of us behave that way? How many of us read the 4,000th character of the product page description before they decide if they want to convert? Screenshot 10 really spoke to me. Nobody really does that. Search results are really where people make up their mind if they want to download. That happens at the impression level on Apple, and Google doesn't give that impression data, and I'll go into why that's important in a sec. So this Google Play search keyword, you can't just arbitrarily pick which keyword you want to use. Google will give you the keywords, and you can get up to 998 of them, plus there's an other and a no data, so for the 1,000. But apps with more installs will get to that limit. If your app is new, doesn't have a lot of install volume, all of the reported keywords Google gives you might just say other and your brand or something like that. So it really depends. It's also not going to be every single keyword, even if you do reach that limit, because typically 20 to 80% of keywords get bundled under this other group of keywords Google won't tell you. So you'll have to check your keyword ranking and see what other potential terms you might be getting traffic on and account for that. And just like the web, you might be getting some referral traffic that gets mixed in there, so keep that in mind. But this is super useful, know what it is and what it isn't. This is an example of how you can use it. So you have all of your organic searches, and maybe you have a fitness app. You can have all the diet-focused keywords and put them into a custom product page, custom store listing, cardio focus, weight training, muscle focus, and have specific screenshot sets that are designed to work with those keywords. And then you can have your main store listing catch-all for the general keywords that are not going to fit within that criteria or Google doesn't give you access to. Again, you can't just pick which ones you want. But if Google gives you a keyword and it's differentiated enough from what your default store listing says, you'll want to improve your chances at conversion by targeting custom store listing there. Apple has similar functionality for this for Apple ads, but Google lets you do this for organic, and this can really change the game on ASO by having basically a whole page focused on one aspect of your app, which could lead to higher conversions. And this is an example of a casino app where they have slots and card games and bingo, and we made a bingo custom store listing, changed the icon, changed other aspects of it. But you can see here, this is the default store listing. And then it sounds oversimplified here, but we added bingo balls. So we showed that this is bingo. That led to a huge increase in conversions when we ran it in a Google Play experiment. You can run experiments on these pages too, which is super important, so that you can compare at the same time, at the same day, is this converting better, and validate that the theory, which kind of makes sense, bingo balls should convert better, and they did. This is another example. This is for Realtor.com. It's a big real estate app. They offer homes for sale. You can sell your home. They also have rentals. And so instead of focusing on what's your mortgage rate calculation and things like that, the rental audience does not care. So we said filter for pets, amenities. Does this have a gym? Find your next home or apartment, focusing a lot more on apartments. And then this improved their installs by 12%. So the variants that we tested that focused on renting, again, this sounds simple, converted better than the mortgage rate stuff for the rental crowd. So huge opportunity here. You do want to test it though, because you can see here there's this purple variant that underperformed. So even though some of this seems like no-brainer, you always want to validate this instead of just saying, oh, this seems good. I think this is good. You should test everything. And then getting into the visitor data. So this is what I was talking about for the missing impressions. When you're setting up a custom store listing, it lets you set it to a percentage of your traffic. That's going to be the percentage of impression volume. So you might have a 50-50 audience segmentation and see that you're getting way more visitors on one versus the other. And you're saying, oh, what the heck, I did 50-50. It's because you can't see the impression volume. So think about what shows up in the impression presentation. That's going to be your icon, your title, if those elements are customized. So that was a big driver of why this converted better, because people were searching for bingo and seeing this in the search results. Feature-based keywords don't show the screenshots for Google Play in a lot of cases. So this drove higher impressions that we can't see, which led to more conversion rates because they partially made up their mind to some degree when they were on that unknowable impression metric. So think about what you're not seeing. This is like a classic survivorship bias image, right? If you're just thinking about what you can't see, all of the planes that don't come back were getting shot in the engines, and all the ones that were getting shot elsewhere. So armor should go here on the impression engines to further drive your installs and not just the visitor bullet holes there. This is another thing. All right, everyone. How many of you are dissatisfied with product page optimization testing in the iOS App Store? Raise your hand if you find the data to be lacking compared to Google Play's experiments that came out 7 years earlier. Yeah, okay. So you can only do one test at a time in one territory, in one language localization. You can run them in multiple, but the data gets aggregated. And so maybe you're doing it in France and in the United States, and you see a 1% uplift. Well, am I like 20% up in France and 20% down in the US? I can't tell because I can't partition that data out. So in order to do simultaneous testing, kind of like Google Play's search keywords, you can run multiple tests if you have, let's say this is a United States campaign and a France campaign. You can look to see which keywords you're ranking well for that are high volume, that reflect kind of an organic proxy of how people can, to a reasonable degree, find your app mostly. put them into an ad group. Just make sure you're not bidding against yourself on some other ad group, make them negative elsewhere if you have a discovery campaign. And you can do a CPP test through Apple Search Ads. You have to pay for it, you have to pay the media spend. But this way you can have 2 tests going at the same time, kind of as an organic proxy. You can expand this concept to not just 2 territories, but it could be 2 feature sets with 2 ad groups. And then you run a baseline phase to see how you're converting, and then implement the CPP and see how that converts. So it's kind of like doing the search keywords in Google Play. Apple doesn't have this, but PPO only lets you do 1 at a time. The conversion rates include re-downloads and not just new user downloads, which is going to skew that data because a re-downloader has a different mindset than a new user download. So this is a good way to measure all that data until Apple, updates it. This graphic is the same one as the search keywords one. It just says Apple Ads because it's exactly the same. You have market segments, you have focus ad groups, and you have a custom product page to support it. This is more of an A/B testing strategy. This is just to optimize your search ads campaigns. I see a lot of people have a brand campaign, and then a discovery campaign, and then my other ASA stuff. And it's like every other keyword that they're targeting. So what you really want to do is put your ad groups around a concept, and that could be a feature, it could be a demographic you're going after, and that way you can put a landing page essentially for search ads to those users, because you can't do that if like everything else is crammed into one ad group and you're like, I don't know, just serve me on whatever's clever, Apple. You want to have focused Apple search ads ad groups and then custom product pages to support them. So implementing these pages is also helpful in getting you more actionable default testing data. Because if you think about it, you have your default traffic and you have your app refers, your web refers, all the other traffic, plus organic. They're all going to go to your default page unless you have custom pages set up, and it could be CSLs on Android, it could be CPPs on Apple. They're going to see that content, and you could be running A/B tests in each of these if you're doing Google Play experiments, for example. But they're not going to be part of this cohort of people that are going to see whatever default PPO that you're testing. So this data being blended with your app refers and web refers, the people coming from your website to download your app are inherently going to convert at a much higher rate than organic people finding you on feature-based keywords. And so they're going to skew any testing data you're doing. So even if you just copy and change nothing, which I don't really recommend, but I do in this case, this will block them from being part of your testing pool. So at least getting that set up can make this data more actionable and granular. Structurally, if you are going to, again, I recommend doing it, change anything in these custom pages. Think about the features that you have and how you can, just like with Apple Search Ads, put a custom product page just for that type of user. It could be a feature that you have. This goes back to that cloud storage and edit photos example. If you have competitor brands, that's another one you can do. You can't target them directly, but you can do some research just like you would do to see what colors are popular, things like that. And they might say, we have 10 filters to edit your photos. And you can say, well, we have 20 filters. And then you can position yourself competitively against them when you appear in search ads, knowing that they're going to be the #1 organic result. And people are going to be making up their mind in that context. So that's something you can do. And then for your brand, if someone's directly searching for your brand, they know more than someone who might just be searching for edit photos. And you can use that to your advantage and change your custom graphics that they see. This concept is about features and doing it for CPPs and CSLs for keywords, but you can expand that to where are they coming from? Is it my mailing list? Are they coming from my meta campaign traffic? What do they already know? And how do I kind of close the deal at the last step? Expanding on kind of this idea where you can do more testing by partitioning your traffic. If you're doing Google Play experiments and not using custom product pages, you can do 5 maximum. You can have your main language, and that's it if it's just default. or you can do 5 localized tests. But you can also run custom product page tests on any of them that you have. And you can have up to 50 of them. You can have 100 of them if you're part of the premium developer, premium growth tools program. And there's no limit to the amount of tests. So you could do 50 tests if you want, if you have this set up properly. And if you're A/B testing the search keyword CSLs and you have enough features and enough traffic volume, this is a good way to do that, testing paid traffic and then A/B testing per channel. So I said like you could do 50 tests up to 100, multiply that by 4, you have all these variants. To be real though, how much traffic do you have? If I have App for Davids during APS London 2025, there's not a really big market, it's you guys, and we wouldn't really get actionable testing data with such a small sample size. So think about how much traffic you get and what would be a realistic, reasonable test to run where you could get that data set back in a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks to account for week-over-week trends. Usually, just to ballpark it, when you're running a Google Play experiment, you'll start to see the confidence intervals come in when you have 300 installs per variant, 300 to 400. So however long that takes, multiplied by however many variants you have and how many days that takes to do, that's a good way to frame, should I do an A/B test for this CSL, and will the data come back and be statistically significant? And then for experiment best practices, so when you're running a Google Play experiment on anything, including your custom store listing, it'll look something like this, hopefully. This is an example of one winning out, like the bingo one. How long to test for? I already mentioned when the data would come back, but account for weekly trends. Don't just run it for like 3 days and say my custom store listing worked, because maybe that was your weekend traffic, which won't look like your weekday traffic. So usually 1 to 2 weeks, more like 2 weeks, even if you have a ton of traffic coming in, because it's may get a flash in the pan thing that stops after the weekend traffic goes away. Equally weighted traffic splits are good. Anything that you're doing for a standard Google Play experiment, you should be doing on your custom ones too. And then don't forget about them. This happens sometimes. So if you have a territory-based, in this case Germany, custom store listing, where you make custom content for Germany and Austria for German language speakers, and then you update your default German language localization instead of these 2 custom pages for Germany and Austria, everyone but your target country will see those updates, and these guys will see the old content. So when you're making updates, just remember that you have these in there and don't leave them to be stale. So the more of these you do, the more of them you have to maintain. Not to say don't do it, but just make sure you're looking out for them. You can also set them to auto-expire if it's something that's a limited time. And then going back to the top of it, having a strong ASO strategy in place is important. So you can do in-app events, you can do custom product pages, you should do all these things, but you need to start by having your metadata optimized, making sure you're updating it around every 30 days because that's how long it takes the algorithm to index it. As you get more traffic coming in, you might see more keywords available for testing. Make sure your creative is optimized. So I've been talking a lot about customizing the different demographics you have, but you should still be doing your sort of catch-all default traffic, A/B testing there. And then supporting ASO with paid campaigns. The way the algorithm works is really from users voting that your app is relevant for this keyword. That comes from organic taps. That also comes from search ads and Google Ads taps. So make sure that you're supporting anything that you want to take to the next level that you're seeing good signs from organically with paid campaigns. So that's it. Use the available features. They're not growth hacks. They're requirements now. Plan your updates out, make sure that your store listing is current, and if you can coordinate the updates you're doing with your engineering team, with your marketing team, which is easier said than done sometimes, but if you know what your product roadmap looks like, and you can plan your marketing roadmap with events and submit them to Apple a few months in advance, it's a good way to get featured. Make sure you're curating your content and having more than one landing page, which sounds like no duh, but that's essentially what it is. You're having one landing page if you're not doing these custom pages. and then measure and iterate, know what the data is and what it isn't, build on your past successes, and just keep on optimizing. All right, thank you.